Couple of days away from the release of A Mission for Meaning, what can readers and fans of yours expect when they pick up a copy of this book?
What I have been working on for the past 2 years actually is really trying to instill. I mean, it's in the title, A Mission for Meaning, but and it's in the subtitle, The Choices That Lead to the Life You Really Want, but really putting weight to the choices that you make every day. And so much of your life can be shaped in the small choices that you make. And I mentioned this in the book, but it's kind of like compound interest.
Yeah.
The choices that you make, though they might seem small and insignificant now, will lead to really, really big compound interest long term through your life. So that is really like the overarching theme of the book, and really making intentional choices. Intentionality was really a word that we kind of kept coming back to
Yeah.
as we were going through the book, and as I was writing it and stuff. And really living your life with intention, and having a clear mission for your life and the trajectory that you're headed, and setting goals for yourself and a course for your life, and then shaping those smaller choices that you make day to day around that, so that you can follow the course of life that you want to be heading in. Because if you're letting life happen to you, you're kind of living defensively. You're just going to be living reactionary, and 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, you're going to be like looking back, questioning how all of this happened. And you're not there's things in life that won't be in your control, right? But you're in control of yourself, and you're in control
Mhm.
of the choices that you make. And those choices will have consequences, whether good or bad. And the more intentional you are with the specific choices that you're making day to day and the habits that you're building, it will change the trajectory of your life. And that's basically what I wrote the book about. And it sounds like very self-helpy, but the book actually recaps a lot of my story and my
Yeah.
family story. And I kind of like share all of these thoughts and feelings that I have through stories, um, through personal stories. And it goes back all the way to from my grandparents, and leads all the way through my life, and kind of like showing intentional choices that were made, not just in my life that changed my life within the next few years, but even choices that my grandparents and parents made that completely changed the trajectory of my life now,
Yeah.
several generations later. And your choices that you're making now are not just impacting yourself, they're impacting the people around you, and they're impacting your future generations of
Yeah.
your
Something that
family.
I
Yeah.
something that I really enjoyed about your book is that you took the position that you're not here to instill your faith onto the reader. Rather, you want to share how your faith has impacted your own life. Why was that so important to you?
Yeah, well, it's definitely hard to write for myself. It would have been hard to kind of write about my life without talking about my faith, because it's a huge part of who I am. But I I'm very practical when it comes to, I guess, the things I do day to day. And though a lot of them are derived from like this, I guess, perspective of faith that I have, it, they're practical and they make sense. So I wanted to kind of like share a lot of these stories, just from my like personal perspective, but then also not like beat people over the head who may not share that same faith, but still explain why, and why it can make sense even if they don't share that same faith. That a lot of these things that I have pulled from my relationship with God, and from my faith, are actually very beneficial and very practical.
Mhm. Yeah, and as a content creator, you share so much of your life online, but this book finds you opening up a lot more. Was it ever a scary prospect to kind of tap into that vulnerability?
Yeah, it was. I mean, there's always a fine line of how much you want to share versus how much to keep private, and what that looks like. And it felt like the right time. Over the years, Jess and I have, as we grew in popularity, and then kind of realized for ourselves we needed to keep a few things more private, a bit of our life more private, than just filming everything, because we were filming almost everything in our life. And I guess over the years, as we've, kind of pulled back on privacy a little bit, the book serves as a really good, I guess, like recap, and not to sound cliche, but it really is an open book to my heart and my life and stuff, and shares things that I've never even shared before.
Yeah.
But I think I was able to craft it a bit more. So, rather than just like filming me talking for a bit and then editing it together and hoping it, turns out good. I'm in a book format. I'm actually able to like share these stories accurately, revisit them, edit them a bit, and just make sure that it's exactly what I want to share and how I want to share it all. And yeah, it really shares a lot more than I have shared in the past
Yeah.
with my life. Because a lot of the stuff that I've shared in the past too, via YouTube and social media and all that stuff, is like real time. So it was what was happening in the moment. Sometimes we would, sit down and like share a story or whatever. But this is just a big, it's a book of stories, and I'm sharing things that never came up, or going into more detail about stories that some people might already know. Sharing a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happened, when the cameras were off, through like Jess and I, Jess, my wife, is Australian, and her residency process
Yeah.
for getting her residency in the US was very, very difficult and took a very long period of time. So even sharing, and a lot of people know that if they follow us, but I was sharing stuff behind the scenes of, some fights that we had and things that we
Mhm.
talked about, that were very, very private. So just kind of like recapping things like that. And then how a lot of those things shaped our life and shaped my life, and mistakes that I made that I learned from. Maybe some choices that I made that were actually the right choices to make, that I could see fruit from after that. And just kind of like recapping those very key moments in my life, but then also sharing, my parents and grandparents' story as well. So it's this like really beautiful multi-generational story that leads through just talking about, living very intentionally and making choices and how they, affect your life and stuff.
Perfect segue to this next question, but family has been such a driving force throughout your career and your
Mhm.
life, and you found such an innovative way to weave that into this story, having them share personal anecdotes. How did that come to fruition, and what has it meant to you to get to share this milestone with them as well?
It's been really cool. It's cool. It's really cool to be able to like honor my parents, and kind of create a little, and I talk about it at the end, at the end of the book, I kind of like recap a bit, and I just say, like not everything was perfect, but in effort to like honor my parents and the good choices that they made that, impacted our lives. And, I share some like really dark stuff too, that they went through. My mom has HIV, stuff
Yeah.
like that, that we as a family had to work through, my parents had to work through, but then how that changed, their lives and how that impacted us, and everything. And just really trying to honor them through the stories that I told about them and the way I shared their story with the world. And yeah, it's been really cool seeing after the first time they read it, it was really cool getting like that phone call saying that they finished the book. Um, and just hearing how, like how they were impressed with the book. They felt very like loved by what I wrote about them, and felt very honored. And they were just very, very happy and excited with what I put together. And it was really cool, kind of getting that from them, because a book like this is very personal,
Yeah.
even to me and to them, and just to the whole family. So kind of getting that really amazing response from them was um I don't know, just made me feel really, really special. And like I did justice to my family's story.
Yeah. Beautifully said. This is also your debut book. Did anything surprise you
Mhm.
about the experience putting this together? What was the biggest takeaway? Are you itching to write another one now?
I'm not itching to write another one yet. I probably will in the future, but yeah, right now I'm focusing on this book and the release and stuff. But one thing that surprised me was just how long it really takes to write a book. Because I started the process over 2 years ago, and so much changed in that time. I found out that it was about a year and a half in, and I found out that my wife was pregnant, and that changed so much of my approach to the book. When I was going back editing after that point, there was so much in my life that was changing, and that I was, adapting to prepare for a third family member, and um, going through that with this like kind of new perspective and new chapter of life starting. It really adjusted a lot of the way I approached some of the topics throughout the book. And yeah, I guess I wasn't expecting to grow so much myself just from writing the book, if that makes sense. And it was like a big therapy session for me over the course of 2 years, over what I was going through and the stories I was telling and wanting to say, and then things happening and being like, oh, this happened in my life. I need to put that in the book as well. How am I going to put it in? It was pretty cool, like having it in real time, where like things were happening, because the process is so long, over two
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
so much happened, that I was able to infuse it in real time with more and more stuff and more like life lessons that I learned, and
Mm.
more like perspective shifts that were happening in my life too.
You're also releasing an audiobook along with the actual physical copy, which I
Yeah.
imagine is a completely different experience when you're writing it versus when you're saying it out loud. What was that
Yeah.
experience like, and what can readers expect from the audiobook that's a little bit different from the physical copy?
I mean, it was pretty cool. You can expect to hear my voice and my wife's voice. My wife, there's certain bits where my wife is like talking. So it's, cool having her be a part of that specifically. She's part of the book because she's part of all the stories and stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess having her be a part of the work per se, and part of that like final product is really cool. So there's some banter in there between us and stuff like that in the audiobook, that it's in the book too, but hearing our voices in real time. I didn't I didn't realize how much I'd lose my voice from just reading, for 4 straight hours a day. And there were multiple like 4 hour sessions that I just did back to back. And yeah, I'd like finish those sessions, and I'd be like, just my voice would be dead, just from talking straight up for hours and hours and hours and just going through. Yeah. And I also didn't realize how like bad I was at reading. I'd like make up different words in different parts of the thing, and I'd be like reading through, and I'd be like, it's a the, not an stuff like that, where I would just like make up stuff as I was going. But yeah, it was definitely a fun process, and I'm excited that I was the one uh being able to record it.
Yeah.
So when people listen to it, they're not, listening to like a random voice, but it's me, the author, and then my wife, who's a lot of people listening will be familiar with and know. So yeah, it's the audiobook was a really cool thing to do, and a really cool like check on the bucket list too.
Mhm. I got two more questions for you. Do you remember the
Yeah.
moment when you received the physical copy of your book? Can you describe that experience?
Yeah, it was crazy. It's crazy. Like being able to open the pages and see what I've only seen on a screen,
Yeah.
especially like some of the I wanted to make it look I guess like prettier than most books. So I just spent some time on like the chapter title pages. It's printed in black and white, so I couldn't do anything too crazy, but just like making them look and adding. So I
Mm.
went through and picked specific images that I wanted to like represent each chapter in a way. And it's all like landscape images and stuff, which that was really cool, seeing that and seeing how like just beautiful it turned out. And just I'm also really obsessed with hardcover books, specifically like the bit that's not the sleeve. So being able to like see this,
Yeah.
and it's like printed and embossed really nice, and it's just like the whole thing. It just would look so good on a shelf, and I don't know, just seeing it physically is just this crazy weird experience of like, oh, I wrote a book. I didn't just write like a bunch of words on Microsoft Word. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway.
My final question for you, there's so many different facets to your talent and your career. As you look ahead to the rest of 2022 into 2023, what can fans expect from you?
Oh yeah, I'm I'm starting to lean more into my like acting career again, and specifically trying to create original stories of my own for like film and TV. And um, I think writing the book really helped with me getting
Yeah.
on this writing kick, but also when I found out that Jess was pregnant, I had like there was so much happening in like my heart and in my mind, and I was trying to figure out one. I was spending too much time doing like too many random things. I had too many different projects going on. And I couldn't really like focus on one thing and do it really well. I was doing like a lot of things like decent and good from my perspective. And I was like, all right, I really need to figure out like what's important and what I need to focus on. One, to free up my time because I'm gonna have a kid, so I need to be present and available with my child. But two, with the now more limited time I have work wise, or I'm going to have work wise, what is it that I actually want to be spending time on? And what do I think I can, really grow in what I'm supposed to do? And like, how is that part of it all ties back to the book, like, how is that
Mhm.
part of my mission? And how is that, part of this journey of life that I'm on? And what am I really supposed to be focusing on and, dedicating my work life to? So a lot of it kind of lined up for me really well. And I cut out over a period of time. I cut out a few leading up to just giving birth. I cut out different projects, finished up some projects that I was working on, and just focused in on like the really important stuff that, I knew I needed to do. I knew I needed to focus on. I knew it was like the main things, the important things, you know what I mean? So, understanding that I needed to spend more time focusing on, film and TV and scripted stuff. That's like always been one of my biggest passions. I knew I needed to free up some time to be able to focus on that. And I'm finally getting to a point. It's been like this whole year of this process of kind of like deconstructing my life and a lot of like my work buckets per se to then build up to like this next chapter
Mm.
of my career that I'm going to be embarking on.